Hey guys, welcome back. What we're going to do today, I have already made about 7 or 8 tutorials using the C2C, or better known as corner to corner. I have taught this stitch or stitch pattern for the last 2.5 years since it's come out. Basically, I still have an overwhelming amount of emails and messages on a daily basis from followers that are still having a huge amount of trouble understanding this stitch. The best that I can offer is to do it once again in just a simple granny square. Other than that, I'm really not sure how else I can provide you with the knowledge of being able to understand this pattern. The best way to do it, as I have told many people that have come to me, is you just really need to work it and work it and watch my tutorials and just keep working it and working it, and eventually it does click. That's what happened with me when I started working this back when it first came out. It did get a little overwhelming, but I think that was due to I overworked it in my mind. And I feel that's what has been happening with this stitch from day one. It's getting overworked in the minds of so many people, and I don't think that the understanding of it is getting through of how simple that it is. So what I did, and you'll find it in the link below the video, and it's going to be on my Ravelry, is I wrote a pattern for a basic granny square, which is just going to be your simple square. You can change the square to whatever size that you would like by changing your hook or your yarn. And the really cool about the C2C is you can change it by simply adding or taking away a block, okay? And many people, and I am going to talk during this video, so if the talking is something that you're not interested in, this video is probably not going to interest you, because I do have to do a lot of explaining. So basically, blocks build up a C2C, and I get that question as well. What do you mean by blocks? Well, when you're building a C2C, you're using blocks. You have a cluster, and you learn that if you watch other tutorials. You have a cluster. Well, a cluster can be made up of several different stitches. And in the case of learning the C2C, you have 4 double crochet, which don't have chains in the middle or slip stitches in the middle or other stitches in the middle. So 4 double crochet altogether make a block. So this is a block, this is a block, and this is a block. So as you're going up, your rows are just gradually forming what you're seeing here is a triangle. And this is going to form in a triangle until you yourself change the direction of this triangle. So you're going to start off, you've got 1 block, then you'll have 2 blocks on your next row. And it's just in numerical order. You've got 1, you've got 2, you've got 3, you've got 4, and you're just going to keep going, okay? I get a lot of messages, well, how do you measure it? Do you measure it on the sides? Again, this is a personal preference question, in my opinion. You can measure anything by the sides if you like, but I've worked the C2C so long, and I've done so many projects with it. The proper way, in my opinion, to measure out the C2C is by the blocks, okay? So basically, if I were going to measure my C2C by the axis, because the reason I say that is I've done an afghan, a put together afghan with blocks, where I was mailed a couple blocks, and I specified it was for a project that I was given to somebody. They had lost everything they had, and my group got together, made a bunch of blocks. I put it together in a huge family afghan and sent this to this family, and I specified all blocks to be the same size. Well, because the person didn't measure the blocks and they measured it by the side, it knocked the whole size off. So if you're going to measure it, you know, by one or the other, it's going to change the size. So basically, if I'm measuring it like this, you're going to see that it's measuring about 5.5 inches. So, but if you go and you measure it by the blocks, you're going to look, let me pull this down here for you. If I measure it by block to block, so that's going to be corner to corner, not up and down like this, but if I go from block to block, it's going to measure an 8-inch square. Okay, so you have to be careful when you're measuring your C2C project. If you're going to measure from side to side like this, you're going to get a way different size project. Okay, so that's why I say when I measure my project, it depends on what I'm really making. If I'm going to make a granny square, which is what I'm making now, I want to make a perfect square, I'm measuring from side to side. So I can already tell you, I've already made half. This is half. I've already done all my increasing. I'm not going to increase this anymore. So from this side to this top side here to the top of this box, it measures 5.5. So already without this project being complete, my whole square is going to be 5.5. And you ask me how I know that. And here's the part that people are not understanding, and they come to me with not understanding sizes. The thing about C2C and knowing how big to make your project, look at this piece. If you look at this piece and you're saying, okay, so I've got this here, and if I just measured, this is going to be 5.5. Understand, if you start decreasing here now, your whole project is going to measure 5.5. Okay? Because you're not growing this anymore. Once you stop increasing and start decreasing, your project stops growing, which means your size stops growing. So it's going to be 5.5. Okay? If you keep growing it, then your size is going to change, which means if you're measuring here to here and you keep going and going and going and building this side, say you keep building and building, you're making an afghan, and your whole side from here to here measures 40, right here on your tape measure, then understand that your afghan, or whatever you're making, is going to be 40 inches. Okay? So I'm hoping that that's making sense, because I don't know how much clearer I can be with that part of it. Basically, if you stop increasing at 40 inches and you start decreasing, understand your blanket is going to be 40 inches. That's going to be your size. Because you quit increasing and you started decreasing. Just because you start decreasing is not going to change the size of your project. It's going to put a stop to your project growing. So if you want to make an afghan, a baby afghan, say you want to make it 45 inches, okay? Increase until you get to 45 inches. Very simple. And then start decreasing. Because this is simple. Whatever size that this half of your C2C is, just pretend like you're going to fold it over. This is the same size the decreased side is going to be. You're going to make two equal sides. So your decreased side is going to be equal to your decreased side, or is going to be equal to your increased side. No matter if you're making a rectangle, if you're making a square, whatever you're making, you know, it's going to equal, it's going to match up. Of course, if you're making a triangle, that's different. But if you're making a square, whatever, a rectangle, however you're doing it, you have to understand that your sides are going to match. So again, people ask me, well, how do I know when to decrease when I'm making a baby afghan? Well, that's a 100-mile question to me. Well, what size do you want to make your baby afghan? You have to ask yourself that question. If you want to make your baby afghan 50 inches, you need to increase until this side reaches 50 inches. Then you'll start your decreasing process, and boom, you've got your afghan. It's so simple that it's getting overly worked in the minds, and I'm trying with every tutorial to simplify this for everybody. So that's why I stopped when I increased. I wanted to be able to explain that. So again, measuring here, here to here is giving me 5.5 inches. Here to here is giving me 8. So just understand you need to decide which way you're going to measure this, because you are going to get a different size. And yes, you can measure by block counts, which like on Red Heart and things like that, there are patterns that says for this particular Afghan pattern, you need to work up 46 blocks. Okay, well, it depends on the pattern writer as to how they choose to measure out their size. And I can't answer for the size of that. Everybody writes their own patterns differently, and if they choose to write it by measuring by blocks, then that's just something you have to experiment with and work your way up. But honestly, it's not that difficult to start making an Afghan and just start making blocks. Because once you start making your blocks, you will see very quickly the size your Afghan's going to be, because again, whatever size this part is, this is going to be half of your Afghan right here automatically, because the other side is going to duplicate this side. It's going to be the same size. So I'm hoping that that's going to make sense. I'm hoping that that's clearing up some questions in the size. And I think I have seen some C2C corner to corner graphs or charts, as far as some people have tried to make charts that you can go by to get like some block counts, or top to bottom sizing. However, it's still fairly new in the market that me, I don't go by the charts. To me, it's just a simple enough stitch that as long as I'm making my blocks, and when I see I have enough blocks and this side right here is a perfect size, then I know that the decreased side is going to mimic this side. Once I'm happy with the size of this side, then I'm just going to start the next side. It's really simple. It just sounds more complicated than what it is, because it's just a lot of information to take in. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to work the square. This is going to be your regular granny square, because I have people asking me about how to make just a basic granny square. So I'm just going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so to make our standard 5.5 inch granny square, I've got my 5mm hook, and this is one that we make. This is one of our hand carved hooks. It's called Paddock Exotic Wood, and you can get this in several different sizes, and you can check that website out of ours. It's listed below the video, and if you're interested in any of those, I have a contact page. So what you want to do first is chain 6. So 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm not going to go super slow with this because I have taught numerous of these videos. So we're just going to work through this. So the standard first thing you do is make your very first block. So once you have your 6 chains, you want to double crochet into that 4th chain from your hook. Okay, that's going to count as 2 double crochets. So that first one right here that made itself, where you've got those 3 chains left, that's going to be your first double crochet, and you just made your second. So double crochet in the last 2 chains. So 1, 2. That's your first block, because you have 4 double crochet. And as I've said many times in my tutorials for the C2C, hold on to your piece. That's very, very important, because until you get up until at least the 3rd or 4th row, it can get floppy on you, and if you lose track of front versus back, that can throw your positioning off for your rows. I've done it, and I know it's a very serious issue if you lose track of front to back of this. So now what we're going to do, turn it just like that, and now we're going to chain up 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're just going to repeat what we did. You want to go down to the 4th stitch, and we're just going to double crochet. Holding onto your piece, because see, if I let go, it's just going to twist, and you don't want to do that. That will mess you up. Now double crochet in the next 2 stitches of that chain 6. And that's going to give you block 2. holding on to those pieces and don't let those go. Now, this is where everybody gets confused. You want to work your slip stitch into that space in between the last 2 double crochet of your first block. First block being here. Your space is here. You've got your third block or your third double crochet and your fourth double crochet. Go into that space. It's simple. Go into this space, pull your yarn through and just slip stitch. That's all there is to it. Okay, so now what you want to do, you're going to start making your third square automatically. Very simple process. All we're going to do is chain up 3. And that's going to count as your first double crochet here. And then just go right back into that space and work 3 double crochet. This is, you know, there's nothing more than working slip stitches, chains, and double crochets here. Okay, so now take a good look at what you got. You have your third block. So see, you've got your row 1, so you've got 1 block. Now you completed row 2, you've got 2 blocks. Now we're going to work on row 3, which is going to give us 3 blocks. Now you want to gently turn that without twisting it. And now you're going to chain up 6 again. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And anytime you chain 6, you're going to work in the 4th from the hook, working a double crochet. And then in the next 2 stitches also, because you have to build that first block. So automatically you have your 4th block, and hold on to it, don't let it go anywhere. Now what you want to do to start working that 5th block, you want to work your slip stitch. So go to the last 2 double crochet on this block, and this is your block right here. So you've got 4 double crochet to make this block. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to the last 2, slip stitch into the last 2 in that space. Nothing hard about that. Now you want to chain up your 3. Okay, very simple, just chaining. Now work your 3 double crochet into that same space like you did before. Okay, now that is going to give you your 5th block. Just like that. And now every row that you go up, all you're doing is adding an extra block in between your end blocks. Okay, so now let's go to the very end, and you're going to do a slip stitch again. So go to the last 2 double crochet, which is going to put you at the end, and slip stitch. Chain 3. Now you just want to build your 6th block, so you want to put 3 double crochet in here. To build a block, you have to have a total of 4 double crochet. Now, if you look at your piece, you're good to go. It shouldn't turn on you anymore. You've got row 1, you got 1 block. Row 2, 2 blocks. Row 3, 3 blocks. Now we're going to turn and we're going to work row 4, and you're going to have 4 blocks. So we're going to chain 6 because we're on the end and we need to chain up 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now working on our chain 6, you want to double crochet in the 4th from your hook and in the next 2 down. And basically all you're doing is repeating this until you get to your desired size. Again, like I said, we're making a basic 5.5 inch granny square. So that means what I want to have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks going across the top. So right now, we just completed our 4th one across the top, right here. Alright, so now you're going to go to this block here and go to the last 2 double crochet. You're always going to slip stitch in between the last 2 double crochet of each block. Okay, so go in between those 2, chain 3. That's your first double crochet of your next block that you're building. Now go back into that same space and work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Very good. That's our next block. So now we're going to work our next block, and it's all about blocks now. So here's your next block from our previous row. Go between the last 2 double crochet again, slip stitch, chain 3. And now you're just going to build your block by putting 3 double crochet in that same space. And this is very simple. You're just going to keep repeating it. And now once you get to the end, it's the same thing. A lot of people get freaked out once they get to the very end. Don't freak out. All you're doing is the same thing you did here. Go in between the last 2 double crochet with a slip stitch, chain 3. Then put 3 double crochet in here because you still have to have an end block. And once you've completed that, if you look at your piece, you now have 4 blocks. Okay? So row 1 again, you've got 1 block. Row 2, you got 2 blocks. Row 3, you got 3 blocks. Row 4, you have 4 blocks. So now we have 2 more rows to go before we start decreasing for this particular square. So you want to turn and chain up 6, and now we're going to start making our first block again. So go double crochet in the 4th from the top, or yeah, 4th from the beginning chain, and then you're going to do the next 2 down. That's your first block of this row. And I'm hoping that this is becoming clearer again for some of you. I really do. Okay, so your previous row here, we're working in between the last 2 double crochets, that space of your next block, so slip stitch. Then simply chain your 3 because that's going to be your first double crochet of this block. Now 3 double crochet in that same space. Nothing to it. And I'm saying that and repeating that because I want to dwell that into your brain that it's just a simple slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet. And if you have to write that on a piece of paper over and over and over to instill that, then by all means go for it, because these make awesome Christmas gifts, birthday gifts. I've made 2 in one weekend. Actually, I've almost made 1 in 12 hours. When you need something quick, by golly, this is the thing to go for. So just anything I can do to help learn it, I am pushing and pushing, because like I said, this is probably going to be my 8th or 9th video on this. So again, your next block, the last 2 double crochet, you go into that space, slip stitch, chain 3. So slip stitch, chain 3, and what comes next here? You're going to work 3 double crochet. So if you can get that configuration in your head, you will be doing just fine, because that's all there is to it. Okay, so then you're going to do that again. Slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet. Okay, and the end is no different. Don't get scared because you're at the end. Go into the last space there, slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet. Very simple. The only thing different you're doing on that last one is you're going to turn. And then you will chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so this is going to be our last row because now we have 5 blocks across the top. Okay, so now we're going to double crochet in the 4th from the hook again. And in the next 2 down, just like all the other rows, and you've got your first block made. So as usual, go into the last space between the last 2 double crochet of your next block, slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet right in that same space. And then that's all you're going to do for this row. Work it across. Slip stitch into that next block, which is between your next 2 double crochet, well, the last 2 double crochet of your next block. Chain 3 and 3 double crochet. Okay, again, in your next block here, slip stitch, chain 3, and 3 double crochet. Alright, and again, in the next block, slip stitch, chain 3, and 3 double crochet. And the longer you make this, or the wider that you make this, the more blocks you have to put on. Alright, and now the last one, slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet. Alright, so that is your 6 blocks of increase. Now, as I said, I've got the size that I want it to be. If you want it to be 60 inches, keep going till this measures 60 inches. If you want it to be 80, keep going till this measures 80. Okay, well, I wanted it 5.5, so I'm at 5.5, so now that's telling me I need to start my decreasing. So now we will start decreasing. Okay, so now the process of decreasing is sometimes where it also gets overworked. Now what I've found is easier to do is I chain up 1 here. And now what you're going to do is you're still going to be working in between the last 2 double crochet of each block. But what you're going to do, instead of chaining up our normal 6 here, because we're not building blocks anymore, we're taking them away because we're going to be making this smaller. So we built this up, but now we're going to make this go down. Okay? So what you want to do is just chain that 1 up, now jump over to that space and slip stitch. Now you'll chain up 3. Okay, and now you'll build your block. So put your 3 double crochet in. And please don't overwork that in your mind. Just simply do it. Just work your chain 1 here, slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet. Simple. Okay? And so now what you're just going to do is jump to that next block, and in the next space you're going to do what you normally do. Slip stitch, chain 3, and you're just going to continue with your blocks as normal. You're not adding, I guess you're making blocks. You're just not increasing blocks, because you still have to build blocks to build your project. Okay, so once you have 4 there, go to your next block, the last 2 double crochet, slip stitch, chain 3, which is still that pattern I told you to write down 100 times if you have to, and then work your 3 doubles right into the same space. Okay, next one, do the same thing, slip stitch in between last 2 double crochet, chain 3, 3 double crochet. The only thing different are the ends when you're decreasing. The centers stay the same. Okay, so one more time, slip stitch, chain 3, and 3 double crochet. Now, you have to decrease on both sides for the perfect square. If you're not making a perfect square and you're making, you know, a rectangle or something else, you can continue growing on one side, but we're not doing that. We're decreasing to make a perfect square, so we need to decrease on this side as well. So all you simply want to do on this end is slip stitch in between those last 2 double crochet. Then you're going to turn. Okay, now if you look at your piece, both of these are squaring off. If you see, they're squared off because you didn't build another square. And you see that they're not continuing to go up. Okay, so now count your blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you went down 1 block. So now you're going to do it again, chain up 1, and you're just going to repeat what we did. Go into the first block, first block is right here, so jump over to the last 2 double crochet, slip stitch, and then start your pattern. Chain 3, and then put your 3 double crochet in. Okay, there's your block, and then just start working that pattern across. Slip stitch in between the last 2 double crochet of that next block, and just work your chain 3 and your 3 double crochet. Okay. Do the same in the next block. And each row you do is going to decrease by 1 block, just like we built it by 1 block. Alright, now your next square, going to do the same thing. And now the next square is where you're just going to do your slip stitch, because you're going to square that off. Alright, just like you did on the other side. Now if you look, you only have 4 blocks. Okay, and that's what you want to do. You want to work that all the way down to 1 block. So now we're going to turn, work that chain 1, and now work in this next block. You want to go all the way to the end, spread that right there where your 2 last double crochet are, slip stitch in that space, and then just start your pattern. Chain 3 and your 3 doubles. Next one, same thing, slip stitch in the space, chain your 3, and put 3 doubles. Okay. Next one, same thing, chain 3, and then your 3 doubles. Now, this last one, you want to go into that last 2 double crochet, that space, and simply slip stitch. And now if you look, you've got 3 doubles left, or 3 blocks left. So that means we're going to turn, chain up 1, and now in that first block, go to the last 2 doubles and do your slip stitch, chain your 3. And then work your 3 doubles. Okay, next one, slip stitch, 1, 2, 3, and then your 3 doubles. And be careful when you get to the end, it'll get a little confusing if you're not sure. Now this one, because see it's straight across, you'll just go straight into that space, which is your last 2 double crochet, same as always, and slip stitch. Now you've got 2 blocks left, meaning we have this last row to do. Chain up 1, go into that your same space, chain up 3, work your 3 doubles, and then all you're going to do now is into that last chain space right here in between your last 2 doubles is you are going to do a slip stitch. And that is how you get a perfect square. Okay? And now, as you see, I'm going to measure it. Let me come down a bit. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to measure it here. And you see it's 5.5. I'm going to measure it at the top, it's 5.5. Again, if you go this way, it's going to measure about 8. Okay? So it is going to be a difference based on if you measure it by block count or if you measure it by your sides. So again, if a pattern calls for you to do it by blocks, do it by blocks. If it gives you a measurement, do it by measurement, because you are going to have a huge difference in that. And then again, I don't use patterns for it or anybody's count because it's so simple that I just go with the flow of it. And when I feel I have enough blocks and I feel my one side, as I said, is big enough, then I know my second side is going to be the same size. And I vision, okay, so I have this side here, and I envision the second side is right up against it. Then I know how big my Afghan's going to be. I don't even need a measurement for that. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out a size. It's really, you don't need a chart. You don't need anything to size this. It's, you know, if you think about it, it's once you figure out what size you want to make, that is the very crucial point to the C2C, is knowing exactly the size you want to make first, because then you can measure and get that. You have to have that in place. That way you can get this first side completed. So again, this is your 5.5 inch plain granny square, and you can add any kind of border to that, and you can find those anywhere, and just work your border into the double crochet chain, the spaces here that you see you have. And if you want to work a larger size square, by all means you can go up a hook size, go up in your yarn, and the simplest way is go up a block size. It's not hard at all to change size in your measurements with these. So again, I'm hoping that this tutorial has helped. Once again, I don't have any more answers to give about this stitch, and I'm hoping that nobody takes that the wrong way as being an instructor of crochet. But sometimes you run out of information, or once you've given out as much as you possibly have on something, you're just repeating and repeating and repeating. So that's why I said I would do this one more and do the perfect square, granny square, in hopes that that would reach out to a lot of people. Because again, I get so many emails and so many messages on a daily basis. And I'm talking hundreds of them. So still a lot of people are having difficulties with it. And I'm hoping that this is going to help tremendously. So do leave me a message under the video. Let me know if this did help. And I would appreciate at least knowing if it did. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial once again. And don't forget to hit the like button. It does help support the channel. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching and happy hooking.